Bible is full of stories that we all know and love. But how well do we know them? The answer might surprise you. The Bible you thought you knew is going to dive deep into the exquisite details of the biblical stories that make them fascinating and transforming. In this week's podcast, we will deal with the book of Proverbs. In a sense, the Proverbs initially come off as the least controversial part of the Bible. Proverbs are typically nice, giving sound advice, promoting patience, prudence, industriousness, insight, and the like. Proverbs provide excellent material for wall plaques or even bumper stickers. They are the most sustained example of wisdom literature in the Bible. Wisdom, of course, is based on observations made about everyday life and how best to approach it. That is why Proverbs suggest appropriate behavior regardless of the circumstances in which one finds oneself. What could possibly be the least bit controversial about these pithy verses? Well, it is not the wise advice per se that requires reconsideration. Rather, it is the promise, sometimes implied and sometimes explicit, that doing the wise thing always guarantees a particular outcome. For example, Proverbs 22, verse 6 gives the sage advice about rearing children. Quote, "Train a young man in the right way, and when old, he will not stray." End of quote. Of course, one might translate more generically. Quote, "Train children in the right way, and when grown, they will not stray." End quote. That is sound advice, encouraging parents to bring up a child in the right way. What is wrong with that? Obviously nothing. One might complain that the proverb is long on admonition, but short on particulars. That is, what is the right way that a child should be raised? Parents from time immemorial have been trying to determine just that. It raises the question, is there a best way to raise a child? But that is not the problem I'm referring to in this case. Instead, the problem has to do with the guaranteed results. The question is, if parents expertly raise a child or children, will it be the case that when grown, the results of that expert raising will always be evident? Parents have lamented, as long as there have been parents, that children have a way of doing the opposite of what they had been trained, taught, or admonished to do. How many parents have been disappointed that their efforts at raising children a certain way seems to have had little effect? The question is clearly rhetorical. The problem is not confined to raising children, however. Many other proverbs promise more than children emulating parents' instruction when they are grown. A few examples make the point. Proverbs 3, verses 1 and 2 suggests that doing the wise thing goes a long way to ensuring a long life and abundant welfare. This is common in the Proverbs. You'll find this in chapter 4, verse 10, chapter 9, verse 11, chapter 10, verse 27. In that same chapter, that is 3, honoring the Lord, that is implied is that honoring is always by choosing wisdom. Honoring the Lord will result in barns full of grain and vats bursting with wine. Granted, the metaphor is agricultural, but the implication cannot be missed. If one honors the Lord, one may legitimately count on future prosperity. This is the case in verses 9 and 10 of chapter 3. Again, Proverbs 10, verse 3 maintains that the Lord never lets the righteous people go hungry. A verse like this has been used historically to demonstrate that poverty is not an economic condition, but a moral condition, and therefore a punishment. In Proverbs 10, verse 24, we are told that the wicked will end up having to deal with dread, whereas what the righteous desire will be granted. Has not life shown us countless times that the wicked sometimes do very well indeed, while the righteous languish with desires unmet? Dealing with this circumstance explains why we so often argue that God will make things right in the next life, because in this life we often experience anything but justice. A similar emphasis is found in Proverbs chapter 11, verse 21, where we are assured that the wicked will not go unpunished, while the righteous will escape harm. Almost anyone can cite counterexamples of that proverb. A problem related to the one about ensuring results from the appropriate application of wise behavior is that the writers of the Proverbs appear to be quite aware of the difficulty of such assurances. We have already seen a number of proverbs that all but guarantee prosperity if one conducts oneself by using wise behavior. At the same time, there are proverbs that point out that a good life while being poor is superior to a bad life while being rich. Proverbs 16:19 is such a proverb. It is better to be of a lowly spirit among the poor than to divide spoil with the proud. A similar sentiment is found in chapter 17, verse 1. Better is a dry morsel with quiet than a house full of feasting with strife. This suggests that one may be wise, but only have, quote-unquote, a dry morsel to eat. This conservative understanding of wisdom is the reason why there are two other major books of wisdom in the Bible that are critical of this wisdom point of view. That is not quite the way to put the issue, though. Wisdom is never criticized directly. Instead, the propensity to assert that wisdom's results are positive without remainder is roundly criticized. If one is not careful, one might claim that doing the wise thing absolutely guarantees results. That is a way of saying that one can be sovereign over one's life or the turns which one's life will take. Two wisdom books challenge that directly. One of these two books is the book of Job. Job is enormously complex, raising a number of issues about how we are to regard human life. But one thing seems utterly unmistakable. The book of Job says that one cannot guarantee the outcome of one's life. Job is presented as a religious exemplar, meaning that he has combined piety with wisdom. Yet his life crumbled. He lost his wealth, his family, and his health. He complained bitterly because of this. God did not flinch at this unrelenting complaint until Job challenged divine sovereignty. It was at this point that God showed up and read the job description of what it takes to be God. Again, Job said many things about human life, but one of those things is that no amount of piety or goodness or wisdom can guarantee how one's life will unfold. The other wisdom book is Koheleth, or Ecclesiastes. This book challenges even more directly the conservative point of view found throughout the book of Proverbs. This book says in no uncertain terms that the wicked often prosper and the righteous often get the short end of the stick. This book says that death comes to all, whether one is wise or foolish. This book argues that one should seize the moment and have a party because how you will end up is the only thing that is guaranteed. Often Ecclesiastes has been regarded as a cynical book, but it has to be understood contextually. And that context involves Proverbs and its tendency to guarantee the results of wise living. The author of this book has no interest in encouraging people to be foolish. Rather, the author wants to make sure that one does think wise living will necessarily make one healthy, rich, or immune to life's challenges. Most people can honestly say that life often seems, or at least sometimes seems, utterly unfair. Children get cancer and die prematurely. A perfectly healthy person can be killed in a second by a car or plane crash. One has terrible luck by being in the wrong place at the wrong time when an earthquake or a tornado or a hurricane strikes. Someone loses a job for no fault of their own. Disease can afflict any of us at any time and without warning. Not only do we know this, we also know it does not matter whether we are religious or not, saintly or not, good or bad, wise or foolish. Life happens, and it happens indiscriminately to everyone. Let's return to Proverbs. Let's affirm that it encourages wise choices in every aspect of life. We may debate from time to time what the wise choice is, but no one is willing to say that searching for the wise choice is not a wonderful human endeavor. Let's be as wise as possible in every circumstance in which we find ourselves. And let's rejoice when wisdom does have a positive outcome. A well-raised child can become, and often does become, a beautiful adult. Financial prudence can yield to a relatively comfortable life. Wise dietary choices may enhance health. We can enlarge this list endlessly. Still, this guarantees nothing. A person can smoke 3 packs a day and die at 85. Someone who has never smoked dies of lung cancer at 54. That is unlikely, but it happens. Acting wisely at best improves the odds, but it does not eliminate the possibility of life tumbling in at the most inopportune of times. Proverbs remains a wonderful book, but it is not an insurance policy. Go to my website, faspina.com, and let me know what your email is so that I can contact you subsequently. And if you have a question that you'd like me to address in a subsequent Q&A period, write me at fspina106@gmail.com. I want to thank you so very much for listening to The Bible You Thought You Knew. I have a question for you. Do you have a question or topic that you'd like me to cover on the podcast? If so, all you need to do is head over to Apple Podcasts and do 2 simple things. 1, leave a rating and review telling me what you think of the podcast. 2, in that review, ask anything you want related to the Bible. That's all you have to do. Then, listen in to hear your question answered on a future episode. Join us next time on The Bible You Thought You Knew when we discuss Jesus' personal Bible. God bless.